Let's talk about New Hampshire. How likely is it New Hampshire could flip? Will we possibly see Republicans take back a Senate seat there?
It's one of their best pickup opportunities, except for the fact that New Hampshire might now be about to nominate the weakest candidate they could send up against the Democrats. The Democrats have spent somewhere north of $50 million nationwide intervening in Republican primaries, trying to get Republican voters to nominate someone that the Democrats think would be easiest to beat. That might happen in New Hampshire. If so, that will be another Senate seat put out of reach for the Republicans.
Well, let's talk about former President Trump. We talk about him a lot. He did not endorse a candidate there in New Hampshire. George, talk to us about why you think he chose not to do so, and how do you think that will or could impact the race there?
Well, the mind of Donald Trump is opaque to me, at least. I don't know why he chooses to intervene here and not there, particularly because the man he would endorse is the one who is favored at this point going into the voting today to win. Mr. Trump usually likes to endorse sure things, and his endorsement probably would have made this a sure thing. So I do not know why he passed up on that. Perhaps he thinks it just wasn't necessary.
Yeah, interesting. Well, let's talk about the big issue that's galvanizing voters across the country in the polls, in these midterms. It's changed several times. It's inflation, abortion, the Mar-a-Lago raid. They've all taken center stage at some point. But then, of course, after this month's CPI report, is inflation the biggest liability, do you think, for Democrats? If so, how do Republicans capitalize on that? And how can Democrats try to defend against it?
Republicans don't have to say a thing. This is an issue that enforces itself. It's insidious for Democrats because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Every time they fill their gas tank, buy a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk, they're reminded of it. And it contributes to a general sense of fraying. When the currency in your wallet is losing its value and there's nothing you can do about it, it's hard to argue in favor of the party that's in charge of policies today.
Well, speaking of that, President Biden today celebrating the passage, of course, of this Inflation Reduction Act. The White House even releasing a statement in response to that rough CPI report saying, we saw more progress bringing inflation down. But of course, this statement coming on the same day Wall Street saw its biggest single-day drop in 2 years. So, George, how do you think the administration can justify this Rose Garden celebration as we are seeing all three indices take some major tumbles?
Timing matters, and the timing was exquisitely wrong for them today. Here's how things could get worse. We have inflation today because interest rates were kept too low for too long. We had effectively, and still have, negative interest rates. Now, there are an enormous number of American corporations, since money was cheap and essentially free below the rate of inflation, have piled up debt. Now, as interest rates are going to rise, these corporations are going to find that their debt load is perilous. So we're going to see some corporate entities in our country in trouble because interest rates have to rise in order to extinguish inflation. Until interest rates are higher than the inflation rate, interest rates are still negative and inflation is still going to roar along.
Well, George, before we let you go, we want to go to the flip side here of all this. Republicans, of course, dealing with significant backlash to the decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. There's this new bill introduced today by GOP senators aiming to ban abortion nationwide at 15 weeks. Do you think this is the right move for Republicans, given what the response has been so far to that Dobbs decision?
I think the Republican thinking is this. A 15-week limit on abortions would still allow 90% of abortions to be performed. 90% are performed before the 15th week of gestation of the human infant. Furthermore, this is, I think, a way of saying to the Democrats will now oppose this, and that will highlight what Republicans think is the Democrats' vulnerability, which is their unwillingness to legislate even against extreme late-term abortions. So Europe, societies comparable to ours, France, Germany, Britain, have settled on something between 15 and 20 weeks. That's probably where the American people are and will come down eventually. So I think the Republican senators proposing this say we want A, to demonstrate the Democrats' extremism, and B, to reassure people that the Republicans are in favor of an abortion cutoff limit that still makes 90% of abortions legal.
NewsNation contributor George Will, we thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.